Before you decide to skip this video, I want you to think about something. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone with less talent than you, less intelligence than you, and fewer opportunities than you, is slowly building a life you once dreamed about. And the uncomfortable question is not how they are doing it. The uncomfortable question is, hasn't she, why you are not. And most people will never ask themselves that question honestly. They will blame their circumstances. They will blame their past. They will blame the people who did not support them, the opportunities that never appeared, the luck that never arrived. But what if the real reason is something far more unsettling? What if the biggest obstacle in your life is not the world around you, but the illusions you have been living with? The illusion that life is supposed to become easier. The illusion that someone will eventually come and fix things for you. The illusion that pain means something has gone wrong. What if all of those beliefs are quietly keeping you stuck? Tonight, we are going to confront a few brutal truths about life. Truths most people avoid because they are uncomfortable. Truths that challenge the way we think about success, struggle, and responsibility. But here is the strange thing about uncomfortable truths. They do not weaken you. They wake you up. And by the end of this video, you may start seeing your life very differently. The challenges you hate, the responsibilities you avoid, even the struggles that keep you awake at night. Because once you understand these truths, something inside you shifts. Excuses lose their power. Fear becomes smaller, and suddenly the life you thought was impossible begins to look achievable. So before you scroll away, stay with me for a few minutes. Because what you are about to hear might challenge you. But it might also be exactly what you needed to hear. Life is not meant to be easy. That sentence alone makes many people uncomfortable, because we have quietly built a culture that promises the opposite. From childhood we are often told that if we work hard enough, behave correctly enough, and plan carefully enough, life will eventually become smooth. The struggle will end. The problems will disappear. Happiness will settle in permanently like a reward for good behavior. But that promise is an illusion. Life was never designed to remove difficulty. It was designed to introduce it, not as punishment, but as a constant condition of being alive. Uncertainty, disappointment, loss, and conflict are not interruptions of life. They are part of its structure. The problem is not that life is difficult. The problem is that we expect it not to be. And when our expectations collide with reality, we interpret the experience as failure. We say something must be wrong, something must be unfair. We start asking, why is this happening to me? But the deeper question is rarely asked, why did I believe it wouldn't? Think about how many people feel personally betrayed by hardship. A relationship ends, and they feel life has treated them unjustly. A career path collapses, and they feel the universe has singled them out for cruelty. Yet the uncomfortable truth is that no life unfolds without disruption. The ancient Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius understood this with remarkable clarity. In his private reflections, he reminded himself again and again that obstacles are not anomalies. They are the terrain of existence. To expect life without friction is like expecting the ocean without waves. And once you accept this, something shifts inside you. Because when difficulty stops being a surprise, it stops being an insult. It becomes information. Most people spend enormous energy resisting the fact that life is challenging. They argue with reality. They complain about the weight of responsibility, the unpredictability of other people, the pressure of time. They want life to soften before they are willing to grow stronger. But strength is never built in the absence of pressure. Psychologically, adversity performs a function that comfort never can. It forces us to confront ourselves. It exposes the gap between who we are and who we imagine ourselves to be. When things are easy, we rarely question our assumptions. We glide through routines. We operate on autopilot. But the moment life becomes difficult, awareness sharpens. You begin to see your fears more clearly. You notice your habits. You discover where you break and where you endure. In other words, difficulty is not merely something to survive. It is something that reveals. This is why two people can experience the same hardship and emerge completely different. One person becomes bitter and exhausted, convinced the world has wronged them. The other becomes wiser, steadier, more capable of navigating complexity. The event itself is not the difference, the interpretation is. When you expect life to be easy, every challenge feels like a violation. But when you understand that difficulty is part of the human contract, challenges stop feeling personal. They become part of the process. This perspective does not remove pain. Loss will still hurt. Failure will still sting. Disappointment will still leave its mark. But it prevents suffering from turning into resentment. Instead of asking why hardship exists, you begin asking what it is asking of you. That is a radically empowering shift, because suddenly you are no longer a victim of life's complexity. You are a participant in it. And participation demands something different from comfort. It demands resilience. It demands patience. It demands the willingness to stay present when circumstances become uncomfortable. Consider how many breakthroughs in human character come directly after periods of struggle. The person who learns patience rarely learned it during calm moments. The person who develops courage usually discovered it in a moment of fear, and the individual who becomes emotionally mature often arrives there through conflict, loss, and reflection. Difficulty is not the opposite of growth. It is often the doorway to it. Yet our instinct is still to escape it. We distract ourselves, blame others, or convince ourselves that the right circumstances will eventually eliminate all pressure. But the truth is that life does not remove its weight simply because we dislike carrying it. Instead, it quietly asks a question. Are you willing to become the kind of person who can carry more? Because the reality is simple and unavoidable. A meaningful life will challenge you. Relationships will test you. Ambitions will stretch you. Time will pressure you. And none of this is evidence that life is against you. It is evidence that you are alive. When you stop demanding that life be easy, you free yourself from a fragile expectation. You begin to see difficulty not as an enemy, but as a signal that you are engaging fully with the world. And that realization changes everything. Because the moment you accept that life is not meant to be easy, you stop wasting energy wishing it were. Instead, you begin the far more powerful work of becoming stronger than the challenges you face. And that is the first brutal truth worth remembering. Life was never designed to comfort you. It was designed to shape you. There is another truth that is often even harder to accept, and it cuts deeper than the first one. It is the realization that, in the most important moments of your life, no one is coming to save you. This idea can sound harsh at first. We grow up surrounded by stories of rescue. The hero arrives at the last moment. Someone appears with the solution. Help comes just in time to prevent collapse. These stories comfort us because they suggest that when things become unbearable, someone else will carry the weight. But real life rarely unfolds this way. People may support you. They may encourage you. They may love you deeply. Yet when it comes to the decisions that shape your life, the responsibility remains yours. No one else can think your thoughts for you. No one else can discipline your habits. No one else can walk the path that your life requires. And still many people spend years waiting. They wait for the perfect opportunity. They wait for the right connection. They wait for someone powerful to notice them and open a door. Psychologically, this waiting creates a subtle illusion. It allows us to believe that our potential is intact, simply postponed by circumstances. We tell ourselves that we could become extraordinary if only the right support appeared. But the uncomfortable reality is that potential does not grow in waiting. It grows in responsibility. When you place your future in the hands of other people, you surrender something essential. You surrender your agency. You become dependent on external validation, external opportunities, external permission. Your life begins to move according to forces you cannot control. And that is a fragile way to live. The ancient Stoic thinker, Marcus Aurelius, understood this deeply. Even as the most powerful man in the Roman world, he reminded himself constantly that the only true control he possessed was over his own mind, his own actions, and his own character. Everything else was uncertain. This perspective forces us to confront a difficult but liberating truth. Responsibility is not something imposed on us by society. It is the foundation of personal freedom. The more responsibility you accept for your life, the more power you gain over its direction. Most people misunderstand responsibility. They see it as a burden, something heavy and restrictive. But in reality, responsibility is the mechanism through which we reclaim authorship of our lives. Imagine two individuals facing the same setback. One immediately searches for someone to blame. They blame the economy, their upbringing, their boss, their partner, their bad luck. Each explanation offers temporary relief, but it also reinforces a sense of helplessness. If the problem belongs entirely to external forces, then the solution must also come from outside. The second person responds differently. They ask a harder question. They ask, what part of this situation is within my control? This question is uncomfortable because it removes excuses. It demands reflection. It forces the individual to examine their habits, their decisions, their blind spots. But it also creates possibility. The moment you identify something within your control, even something small, you regain influence over your future. You move from passive observer to active participant, and participation changes the psychology of struggle. Instead of feeling trapped by circumstances, you begin to experiment. You adjust strategies. You build skills. You strengthen discipline. Each small act of responsibility becomes a form of momentum, gradually reshaping the trajectory of your life. Of course, this does not mean that life becomes fair or predictable. External obstacles will still exist. People will still disappoint you. Systems will still be imperfect. But responsibility changes how you relate to those realities. You stop waiting for ideal conditions. You begin working with the conditions that exist. This mindset transforms how you approach growth. You no longer ask who will help you become better. You ask what actions you must take today to move one step forward. Responsibility also transforms how you experience failure. When you believe someone else should rescue you, failure feels like abandonment. But when you accept responsibility for your path, failure becomes feedback. It becomes information about what must be adjusted, strengthened, or reconsidered. Over time, this attitude builds something that cannot be given by others. It builds internal authority. You begin to trust your ability to navigate uncertainty. You recognize that even when the world is unpredictable, your capacity to respond remains yours. This is why waiting for rescue can quietly steal years of a person's life. It delays action. It postpones growth. It creates the illusion that transformation will begin once the right person appears. But transformation rarely arrives through rescue. It arrives through decision. The decision to wake up earlier when motivation is absent. The decision to continue learning when progress feels slow. The decision to hold yourself accountable when no one else is watching. These decisions may appear small in isolation, but over time they reshape identity. They create a person who does not depend on external permission to grow. And once you reach that point, something remarkable happens. You stop asking who will save you. You begin asking what you are capable of building on your own. That shift marks the beginning of genuine power. Because the moment you accept full responsibility for your life, you remove the most dangerous illusion of all. The illusion that someone else will live it for you. And once you accept that life will not become easy, and once you understand that no one is coming to rescue you, another realization begins to emerge. It is quieter, but perhaps even more transformative. The struggles you experience are not simply obstacles in your life. In many ways, they are the very forces shaping who you become. Most people see pain as something purely negative, something to eliminate, to escape, to anesthetize as quickly as possible. When discomfort appears, the instinctive reaction is to ask how to make it disappear. We distract ourselves. We avoid difficult conversations. We abandon goals the moment they become complicated. But psychologically and philosophically, pain performs a far more complex role in human development. Pain is a signal. It draws our attention to what matters. It forces us to confront realities we might otherwise ignore. And perhaps most importantly, it exposes the structure of our character. Think about moments when life becomes intensely challenging. A failure at work, the loss of a relationship, a dream that collapses after years of effort. These moments carry emotional weight, because they disrupt the story we were telling ourselves about how life would unfold. In those moments, we meet ourselves more honestly than at almost any other time. Comfort rarely demands self-examination. When things are going well, we assume our beliefs and habits are working perfectly, but hardship interrupts that assumption. It forces us to ask questions we often avoid during easier times. Who am I when things do not go my way? What do I rely on when certainty disappears? What kind of person do I become when life refuses to cooperate? These are not simple questions, yet they are the questions through which character develops. The Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote often about this dynamic. He reminded himself that obstacles do not merely block the path forward. In a deeper sense, the obstacle becomes the path. The resistance itself becomes the training. This idea may sound abstract at first, but its implications are deeply practical. Every challenge you encounter contains a hidden invitation, not an invitation to suffer endlessly, but an invitation to grow in a specific direction. When you face rejection, you learn resilience. When you face uncertainty, you learn adaptability. When you face loss, you learn perspective. These lessons cannot be downloaded instantly or borrowed from someone else. They are internal transformations that occur through experience. Of course, not everyone responds to difficulty in the same way. Some people experience hardship and become bitter. They carry resentment for years. They replay old wounds in their minds, convinced that those experiences permanently defined them. But others move through hardship differently. They allow the experience to teach them something about themselves and about the world. They do not pretend the pain was pleasant, but they refuse to let it remain meaningless. The difference between these two responses is not the event itself. It is the interpretation. When you believe that pain is only an enemy, every difficult moment feels like proof that life is against you. But when you begin to see struggle as a form of training, your relationship with adversity shifts dramatically. You begin to ask different questions. Instead of asking why this is happening to you, you ask what this experience is asking of you. Instead of focusing entirely on the loss, you look for the capacity it might be developing within you. This does not romanticize suffering. Pain is still painful. Disappointment is still real. But meaning changes how suffering integrates into our lives. Without meaning, hardship feels random and cruel. With meaning, it becomes part of a narrative of growth. If you look closely at the individuals you admire most, you will often find this pattern. Their strength did not emerge from a perfectly comfortable life. It emerged from navigating challenges that forced them to evolve. The calmest people are often those who have already faced storms. The most compassionate individuals are frequently those who have experienced pain themselves. The most disciplined minds are often forged in periods when giving up would have been easier. Hardship, in this sense, is not simply something that happens to us. It is something that shapes us. Yet the shaping only occurs if we remain engaged with the experience long enough to learn from it. Avoidance prevents growth. Reflection enables it. When you encounter difficulty, you have a choice. You can close yourself off, convinced that the experience only took something away from you. Or you can examine it with curiosity, asking what kind of strength might emerge from it. Over time, this mindset builds a quiet confidence. You begin to trust that even when life becomes unpredictable, you possess the ability to adapt, not because the future is guaranteed to be easy, but because you have already survived complexity before. That awareness creates resilience. And resilience is not about becoming immune to pain. It is about becoming capable of moving through pain without losing your sense of direction. So the next time life confronts you with difficulty, resist the instinct to see it only as an interruption. Look more carefully. There may be a lesson embedded within the struggle, waiting for your attention. Because the experiences you wish had never happened may eventually become the experiences that prepared you for everything that comes next. And perhaps that is the most powerful truth hidden inside adversity. Your struggles are not merely breaking you. They are building the person you are becoming.